Welcome to Faith in 5, a weekly video devotional designed to discuss practical spiritual concepts in 5 minutes or less. I'm your host, Mark Vandella.
We're coming to the end of summer and nice weather. I'm here in Michigan, and in Michigan, we love our piers and we love our lighthouses. If you go to any cottage on a lake near Lake Michigan, you're going to see lighthouse paraphernalia, lighthouse pictures, paintings. You're going to see people posting pictures of themselves standing in front of the many, many lighthouses that we see. We love our lighthouses, and they're pretty and they're cool. But the unique thing about lighthouses is that lighthouses are a result of danger or potentially damage. Most of the time, nowadays, we set up lighthouses because we know that there's a potential danger, but lighthouses actually came about because a ship actually wrecked, right? They mark dangerous spots, they mark traffic patterns, and so in order for us to have built a lighthouse, we had to first crash a ship and know that then we needed a lighthouse in that spot. And I tell you this because in her book, in Hannah Brencher's book, Come Matter Here, she talks a little bit about the difficulties in her life and how those difficulties in her life have given her a sense of deeper meaning. And I think in the faith world, we often kind of talk about that. And the Bible has a number of examples of difficult times and really how those difficult times grow and shape us. But oftentimes when we're in the middle of difficult times, like when our ship is wrecked, it's really difficult to see that there's value here. And it's also not exactly the wreck that gives us value. It's what we do with that wreck. It's the lighthouse we erect in that spot. And so Hannah shares a story about her struggle with depression and how depression in her life has often been one of those places where her ship is wrecked. And it was only once she had the opportunity to share her depression story with other people, or these moments in her life where she'd find herself across the table from somebody who was also struggling, that she was able to see the rocks upon which her ship wrecked, but not just that, the lighthouse that she was able to build to say, I know where you've been, I've been there too, and here is the marker, like here are the things that improve that and help us through this. And as Hannah tells about her story of depression, she actually references a story in the Bible about Jacob. And Jacob is the brother of Esau. They're twins, and it is a long story of kind of tragedy and a whole bunch of things that don't go exactly right. But there's a moment in it where, so Jacob and Esau become estranged through a number of weird kind of circumstances. And there's a moment where it's about 20 years later that Jacob is trying to come home to reconcile with his brother. And I love the way that Hannah says it. So Jacob's preparing to come see his brother, and he sends a bunch of people up front because he's worried about this meeting after 20 years. And Hannah says, essentially Jacob is going to a family reunion, and he meets this guy on the street and then wrestles that guy. Like, it's kind of a strange story. And so Jacob wrestles this guy. It's in Genesis 32. He wrestles this guy, and in the midst of wrestling with this guy for a very long period of time, the guy actually dislocates Jacob's hip. And so Jacob feels pain in this moment. And at the end of this, they have this interesting conversation. And Jacob says, before you go, like, we've just wrestled, you just popped my hip out, like, you got to bless me, dude. And at this point, it's just a guy. And the man in Genesis 32:28 says, no longer is your name Jacob. From now on, it's Israel, which means God wrestler. So now it's kind of this metaphor that it's not just a dude. Like, Jacob spent time wrestling with God. And then this moment marks, you've wrestled with God and you've come through. And Jacob says, well, okay, so God wrestler, like, who are you then? And the man says, why do you want to know my name? Jacob said, or essentially it comes to the conclusion. Jacob says in 32:30, Genesis 32:30, he says, Jacob named the place Peniel, which means God's face, because Jacob declares, I have seen God face to face. I've come face to face with my maker, and I have lived to tell the story. So a lot of times when we talk about the story of Jacob, and actually the chapter in Hannah's book, Come Matter Here, it's actually like, thank your limp. So oftentimes when we talk about Jacob, we talk about the limp that he got from the hip being dislocated. and that we should focus on, or we should be able to celebrate the times where our ship has wrecked. But I love the moment in this story in Genesis 32:30 when Jacob says, it's not the pain from the hip, it's not just the limp as the reminder, it's actually the fact that I came face to face with my God. I wrestled, and now I've lived to tell the story. So my ship has been wrecked, but I am going to build in this place a lighthouse. This is my Peniel. I'm going to build a lighthouse, and I'm going to do something valuable with this limp that I now have. It's not just the fact that I've crashed, that maybe I've learned something from the crash, but that I'm going to do something meaningful with that crash. And so in our faith, I want to encourage you this week in your faith to look at those places where maybe you need to wrestle with God, that you need to spend some time discussing and arguing and really battling with God, and look for these places where maybe he's trying to touch your life, where he's coming face to face with you, and you will live to tell a story about it. Additionally, I would say look for those places where you have had an opportunity to erect a lighthouse, to put something there and say, this was a moment in my life, but because of that, now I can shine a bright light out there and help other people either not wreck their ships, or people who are shipwrecked understand where I've been. I've got a couple of those moments in my life. I know some of them are difficult to talk about, but there are moments where there were lighthouses built. When I was 8, my family lost everything. We were poor and destitute, and I as a result, I had lack of confidence all throughout grade school, middle school, and most of high school, until I met Jesus, until honestly I came face to face with my Maker, and I decided from that moment on I was going to build a lighthouse here, and I was going to show up in the lives of other teenagers who were like that. I was going to go really share this message of Jesus, which I thankfully still get to do today through videos. It's not about me though. What I really want is I want to challenge us and encourage us to look for those moments where we need to either spend time wrestling with God, or we need to look for moments to build those lighthouses, to turn our limp into Peniel, into this place where we get to tell a greater, bigger story.
Thanks for watching Faith in 5. If you like what you see, please like and share. If you're interested in making a donation to our ministry, please click the link below.